Welcome to this Energy Quick Chat where we rub minds with stakeholders and players in the energy market. Today, I am joined by William Brent, Chief Marketing Officer of US-based solar mini-grid company, Husk Systems, to speak to me about what the company has been up to since we last caught up with him. Husk is the operator of the largest fleet of community solar microgrids across Africa and Asia. Nice to have you here again, William. How are you?
It's great to be back, Justine. I'm well. It's good to see you.
All right. So it looks like it's been a busy season for you guys at Husk. Run me through what the first 6 months of the new year had been for you, especially in the last quarter.
So, yeah, it has been a very busy last 12 months. The last quarter and first half of the year, it's largely been preparing for growth, right? We're a company that's 15 years old. We've made mistakes, learned from those mistakes. We've now reached a point where our business model is profitable. We've got a very strong technical underpinning for the business that allows us to scale. This first half of the year has really been about trying to finalize investment so that we can grow from where we are today, 200 plus mini grids to 2,000 mini grids in the next 3 to 4 years. And also getting the team in place that can actually execute against that, right? So we've been the past 12, 18 months have been really focused on fundraising, both equity and debt. That's been a major focus for us for the first half of the year to close that and secure that financing, while also putting together the team across the board, operations, finance, engineering, et cetera, to be able to get from that 200 to 2,000. That 10x growth is going to require a leap in our ability. So that's been a big focus for us.
Right.
And we've also been, really trying to explore other markets and look at different ways that we can bring additional revenue streams into the business, whether that's looking at different energy services, different financing mechanisms, et cetera. So there's always more to do than we have the capacity to do. But those are the main focuses for what we've been working on.
You mentioned the fundraising. Can you speak to me a bit about that?
Sure. So I think we've talked about it in the past, but Husk Power to date has raised about $40 million in both equity and debt. We didn't start raising debt until last year. We raised about $12 million in debt in 2022. And so that $40 plus million got us to where we are today. So 200 mini grids, a viable business model in India, Nigeria. And, what we need to grow is another $100 million. So that's what we are in the process of finalizing, that $100 million investment. That'll be about $40 to $50 million in equity, plus another $60 million in debt. The equity will help us expand as a corporation, build our team, build our capacity, potentially enter new markets. And that debt will help us build out the pipeline of projects that we've got in place. In Nigeria, for example, we have about 100 projects in our pipeline. We need money. It's a capital intensive business. We need money to build out that pipeline. Same thing in India. So that's, we're hoping to announce, something about that financing in the next quarter.
Now, let's chat to how your company is leveraging the use of carbon credits in the mini grids market to increase revenue.
Sure. So, the mini grid business is a challenging business, right? We're trying to electrify communities that are unelectrified, where the grid is not present. And, it's a capital intensive business. Anything you can do to add additional revenue streams into that business model will help. It'll help us to lower our costs. It'll help us to, be able to provide more affordable services to our customer. So in 2019, we actually went through a formal process with the UN FCCC, essentially the climate change arm of the United Nations, working with partners to create a methodology whereby we could start to quantify what the value of carbon offsets is from us displacing diesel generation. A big part of our business, whether it's India or Nigeria or other markets, is we're going into places where diesel generation is the primary energy source for any economic activity. And so if you're able to actually displace that diesel generation with solar mini grids, there's an offset there that you can monetize on the global voluntary carbon market. So we did that in 2019. We essentially forward sold 5 years of offsets through that process. So we were able to capture that revenue for 5 years upfront that we can then put into our business and help develop. So it's not going to be a huge game changer in terms of incremental income for the company, but it is incremental income, and that will help us to then scale even further.
Right. So how does Husk Power use AI? I know you mentioned that in your report to scale sustainable energy solutions to serve rural communities in Africa and Asia.
So I'm sure you've been to rural Nigeria. I've traveled around the country. These are communities that we're electrifying that are spread out over huge distances. And the same's true in other markets as well. The only way that you can scale a solution like the mini grids that we build is by building a really robust digital platform, right? You can't service these remote rural areas the same way that utilities serve urban areas, where if there's an issue, you just send out a van, you make a repair. When you're working across hundreds, thousands of kilometers, you have to have a digital solution that underpins that, right? So that includes smart meters, it includes IoT and sensors that allow for remote monitoring and management, plus AI. AI is becoming much more important for our business, and we just won an award at the UN recently for that allows us to do a lot of demand load forecasting at the site level. And then the next thing that we're going to be using AI is to try and push that down further to actually start to customize our services at the customer level, right? So now we're doing it at the site level. We want to do it at the customer level as well.
So how can investors' appetite for energy projects be increased in developing countries that are without electricity, given the overall tight fiscal environment?
It's a great question. And the mini grid industry has struggled to attract the investment needed to really scale over the past 10 years. It's starting to change incrementally and gradually, but it needs to change much faster, right? The World Bank says that mini grids can electrify almost 500 million people by 2030 as the most cost-effective way of doing that. In order to make that impact, we need a huge amount of capital, right? And that capital has not flowed into the industry yet. So I think I was at the Clean Energy Ministerial in India recently, last month. And one of the things that was very encouraging for me to hear was that the World Bank is looking at moving from a lending mindset to a leveraging mindset, right? So what we need financial institutions like the World Bank, like other development finance institutions that have concessional capital to come into the market and leverage what they have to de-risk commercial capital that can then come into the market. Commercial capital has still not come into the mini grid industry in a major way. The only way it will come in is if someone or some entities like the World Bank, like other development finance institutions come in and use their capital to leverage bringing in other more commercial capital. Once we have that mechanism in place, should be able to attract the type of investment that's needed. But I think that's a big that's a big shift in thinking. The new head of the World Bank is actually in Nigeria right now, I think. And that's his intent is to really try and rethink how those institutions function so that they can use a limited amount of capital that they have. It's billions of dollars, but it's still, not enough to do what's needed, right? If they use that money as leverage to bring in additional forms of capital, more commercial capital, infrastructure capital, then I think, that dynamic should shift and there should be more capital available.
Right. Now, what does the rest of the year look like for Husk Power Systems? What else will you be doing in terms of expanding into new markets in renewable energy?
So, once we, finalize this round of equity and debt, it's all going to be about execution, right? We're about at a point where that hockey stick, growth phase is about to begin. So for us, it's going to be taking all of the knowledge that we've gained over the past 15 years and leveraging that to execute at speed and scale. We are already looking at entering other markets, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. You may recall earlier this year, we issued an invitation to governments in sub-Saharan Africa to partner directly with us as a public-private partnership. If they provide the conditions for us to enter the market, we'll commit to raising the financing to build 200 mini grids in that country, right? So we have the intent. Our goal, as you may know, is to build 5,000 mini grids by 2030. And so we're definitely quite active in looking at which markets we will enter next. And, more will be announced later, and happy to come back and talk more about that.
Right. Well, all the best to you guys. William Brent, Chief Marketing Officer at Husk Power Systems. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And that's it on our Energy Quick Chat. Thank you everyone for taking time to watch. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe to see more videos like this, and follow Frontier Africa Reports across all our social media handles. Bye for now.